Welcome to Paw Print Academy, your blueprint to raising better dogs. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your host for this journey. I've got my trusty co-host here, Brianna.
Hello.
And together we're bringing you real-world training insights built on leadership, structure, and proven methods. We record this podcast with live clients on the line in one take with live, unscripted questions and answers. At the end of the day, this podcast is a lot more than just teaching your dog to sit or stay. It's about building trust, creating calmness, and becoming the kind of leader your dog truly needs. We do that with our 3-pillar method of trust, obey, and perform. Together, we'll show you how these 3 pillars shape every step of training. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, welcome. Episode 34, Dogs and Guests, making hospitality stress-free. That is the goal.
Yeah, always.
Stress-free hospitality sounds awesome, but it is easier said than done. And it's going to take a lot of pre-training and prerequisite accomplishment before the guests get there.
Yeah, because if you try the first time with guests arriving, you're going to have a tough one.
Right. And this is a concept that I feel like gets missed a lot of times because we're so focused on let me train my dog to do this. And so you make them do that with kind of your blinders on. And you're super focused on what it is that you're trying to teach. And you forget the background and the baseline and the foundation that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be overwhelming for sure.
All right. So as we get started here, I can't tell if I sound different or if, so I'm like half sick over here.
Bit. You're a little nasally.
But overall, the sound doesn't sound weird.
No.
I basically have no hearing in my left
it's
ear.
probably your hearing, yeah.
So
no, you sound fine.
I feel like I sound very different.
Nope.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into here.
Okay.
The real quick updates before for our weekly statistics. We have officially passed the 1,000 downloads mile marker.
Ooh.
Woo! Right. Which one is it?
The yellow one.
Yellow one. That's it. Nice. Good one. 1,038 downloads from when we started this.
Yeah.
So super excited about that.
3 episodes ago.
Right. Great. The next piece of statistic is that we are officially over 60 on subscribers to our new app space.
Nice.
And with that, we have over 10 courses. Well, we have 11 courses up and running on the app that you can take a look at. We've got the community up and running, and we have the link to this podcast. So if you are sitting at home and listening to the episodes and you're like, man, I really would like to ask questions live, you can. Mm-hmm. You download the app. The app is at thepawprintacademy.com. You can also, if you have issues or you just can't seem to figure it out, send me an email at team@thepawprintacademy.com. I'll help you, I'll walk you through it. But you go into that app space and you go down to the events and announcements, and you will find a RSVP link for dialing into the podcast each week. And you can come hang out with us.
Right. It's so fun.
Yeah, so fun. Okay, so without further ado, episode 34. The core idea behind today is that most problems with dogs and guests come from, and we like to say this a lot, unclear boundaries, right? Overexcitement, either a lack of boundaries or certainly not well communicated boundaries, a lack of preparation. All of these things go into setting yourself up for frustration before the person even knocks on your door.
Yeah.
And calm hospitality in general, just inviting someone over, is trained through structure. We say it over and over and over. It almost, it's repetitive, but it almost sounds just canned, right? Because we constantly talk about structure.
Yeah.
But structure is is the difference between a dog that you brag about and a dog that you are embarrassed by.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we see this, hear this a lot. It's like, well, I had this one dog a long time ago. Well, the breeding pools have changed.
Yeah.
The backyard breeding is out of control. The shelters are overflowing. The reactivity is not just on the rise, but at a critical like mass epidemic in America on the dog training side, on the dog side, just in general. You're not alone.
Yeah, for sure. There's a ton of people out there that have the same experiences.
But we can affect a change.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're going to just point at, oh, you can't invite someone over, so let's just work on having someone over. That's not where it starts. Because most of the time when we assess a situation, we're like, okay, well, what do you want them to do? I've traded messages with people over the phone, and it throws them for a loop. Because I ask them, the very first question I ask them is, well, what do you want your dog to do? They call me and they're like, my dog barks incessantly. My dog crowds the door. My dog jumps on people. And I ask them, well, what do you want the dog to do? And always they say, well, not do that.
Yep.
But that's not what you actually want them to do. That's what you don't want them to do. And you can't train a dog. I'll cut to the chase. This is the answer. You cannot train a dog by telling them, don't do this.
Alone.
Right. Yeah. That's half of the teeter-totter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because if I tell you, do not, whatever you do not think of cherries. What do you think of? You immediately, at least for a split second, you picture cherries and you're like, oh, don't think of those. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But this is the same concept for the dog. If you don't do this, what are they thinking about, right? When we're talking about a reactive dog or an excited dog, they're like, oh, okay. We're pointing the dog's attention in the direction of whatever it is that they're overstimulated by. So we've got to attack this without that stimulation present first.
Yep.
And that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Let's do it.
Front door. Let's start with the front door.
Right, the arch nemesis. It's always the front door. Nobody has a problem with their back door usually. Nobody is like, my dog's causing problems at the back door.
At the back door. It's always
Nobody,
the front door.
yeah.
Well, that's where the most excitement comes from.
Yeah.
And most dogs, they get overstimulated probably before the guest even enters the house, right? They're the doorbell, the sound of somebody walking up to the door, the sound of right, the sound of the pizza delivery guy putting the food down in the COVID eras. We don't open the door anymore for them. Right. The UPS guy putting the package down. The whatever the delivery is, those sounds oftentimes trigger things that we don't want in dogs.
Yep.
But it comes from that conditioned response that there's something that the dog felt like they either needed to alert to initially, or they felt that something exciting was about to happen.
Yeah.
So the doorbells, the knocking, all of those things, it starts to build that arousal in the dog. And if you have not worked on arousal control and you've not worked on impulse control, you've got your work cut out for you in that moment, because what are you going to do? Don't get excited. That doesn't work.
Right. And also, it's like the matter of fact that you're excited during that moment, too. When you answer a door, you don't generally answer your door just to be like, hello.
Right.
You're like, about, hey, how's it going? Like, you're amping up your energy, but you're expecting your dog who's standing right next to you to not match that energy.
That's also a good point. The nervousness and the anxiety that some people have when someone knocks on the door and you don't, for whatever reason, like they can't go and open the door right away.
Yeah.
Put yourself in that predicament for a second. Like we do it with our phones all the time. Phone's ringing, and let's say that it's somebody you don't know who it is, right? Because you can't see it. It's across the room. There's a lot of people that stop everything that they're doing and run across the room in order to get it.
Yeah.
Right? It's a conditioned response, even for humans. So it's not that hard to understand why it's a conditioned response for dogs to also get excited, but the way that they show that excitement is usually what humans go, that's inappropriate. But your dog's not telling you it's inappropriate.
Right, yeah. They're not telling you that.
All right, so the jumping, the barking, the spinning, the whatever your dog is doing, it's usually not just excitement, though. And that's what we need to be aware of, because when they're puppies, we see those things and we go, oh, it's so cute. Oh, look, they're so happy. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. And that's fine right up until it's a problem.
Yeah, right until they scratch you or
right.
They push you over or make you fall down or something of that nature.
Yeah. And then suddenly you're like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
I need this fixed. Well, at first, we might have accidentally kind of conditioned them towards it. And so we want to watch out for that.
Yeah.
Additionally, this is something that the next concept here is something that pretty much everybody can work on more. I have to still work on it with my dogs. But the concept is threshold management.
My favorite. Right next to place for me.
And the concept of having an entry and an exit routine that can create predictability and reduce that like chaotic, oh my goodness, I'm blasting through the door is really important.
Yeah.
And we can train that without guests. We should train that without guests.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's something, so usually we structure this to kind of identify the problems, but I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. We don't allow our dogs to crowd the door, which means that they've got to stay about 3 to 4 feet back. By creating this artificial boundary, this little force field, so to speak, around the door, you can at least increase the likelihood that when you go to open the door or when someone else steps in the door, they don't get bum rushed right off the bat.
Yeah.
Then we can improve that through a bunch of other things we're going to talk about tonight. But the concept of threshold management is simply managing that door or that access to the outside.
Yeah.
And every door and every doorway can be an opportunity to practice threshold management, where we walk through the door first and we invite our dogs to come with us.
Yeah. Or at least wait for a release, right? It can be front door, back door, kennel door, interior doors through your house, any of those spaces.
Right. So let's talk about the how owners a lot of times unintentionally reinforce these chaotic greetings. So Brianna kind of alluded to some of that right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where we're excited to see someone coming over too. The dogs for sure pick up on that.
Yep.
They're like, oh my goodness, something is different.
Yeah.
Something is exciting. What are some other things?
I think it's not putting them in confinement and letting them kind of calm down, or putting them somewhere to where they can calm down on their scale of energy before allowing them to even get to the guests. That's a really big one. And also pushing the dog away from you when they're jumping up onto you is one that a lot of people don't realize is reinforcing to a dog, because even if you're pushing the dog off with your hands, you're still touching the dog. And to the dog, that's still a similar reward for them because they wanted the contact. So I think that's another one that people really just don't see as reinforcement because they're just doing it so naturally.
Yeah, I agree. I think the contact, we do not realize how most dogs like to play rough.
Yeah.
Most dogs, when you can't get them to fetch and you can't get them to tug and you can't get them to this and you can't get them to that, almost always they they like rough play.
Right, personal
right,
play.
They love
like
personal,
like your arms,
let's
like
wrestle.
Wrestling, yeah, basically.
Right, WWE SmackDown in the living room, for sure.
Right, I do that with the little Maltese that I'm working with right now. That's his favorite type of play. Is personal play. He loves to like wrestle with you.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with a dog like that, and it's all dogs, but especially those dogs, physical contact is extremely arousing. Mm-hmm. And we're not just talking about, like arousal in the terms of like, wanting to mate. We're talking about just in general, like that excitement. Mm-hmm. When we increase that because we are pushing the dog away, almost always owners don't realize that they're doing it.
Yeah, not at all.
And they're just like, no, I told him no. Mm-hmm. And you're like, right, but you sent the message of yes.
Yep. Yeah,
that's a big one. And then anticipation. Anticipation plays a huge, huge role at any form of excitement.
Yeah.
But especially when someone comes over. Because this is similar to gifts on Christmas morning. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, if you were lucky enough to wake up and there were a bunch of gifts under the tree, if most people in America, the tradition is kind of that you wrap the presents or some sort of, you cover everything up. And then there's kind of this like build in anticipation as you're unwrapping the gifts. Mm-hmm. Now, I draw this I draw this example because if you were to just have your toys as a kid completely unwrapped, everything was put together and it was just sitting there under the tree, just out of the box, all right there, you would get a huge dump of dopamine, mm-hmm. right? You wake up, you're like, oh my goodness, this is great. Look at all this stuff. But the amount of anticipation that builds when things are wrapped and you have to like separate the gifts and take turns opening them and all of this stuff, it just like goes and goes and goes and builds and builds and builds. This is how we also like to train dogs. But this happens inadvertently when guests come over, because guess what? Somebody's at the door. Who is it? What's there? Mm-hmm. What about, when are they going to come in? Are you going to go get the door? There's so many of these like questions and exposure like variables that are happening in rapid succession. Mm-hmm. So no wonder this is a huge issue for people when they're like, right, my dog will lay on place all day, but as soon as someone comes to the door, they're off.
Right, it's because it's a form of classical conditioning, right? It's like you ring the bell, you give the food, you ring the bell, you give the food, you ring the bell, an exciting person comes in.
Right, yeah, this is literally, it's a doorbell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it just builds that conditioning in the dog, naturally.
And so we're highlighting these things and showing you, oh, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. We're going to talk some of, well, how we can avoid that. Mm-hmm. But also, I just want you to be a problem. If you're listening to this, you can be a problem solver and identify, oh, wow, I probably am conditioning that. Okay, cool. Do the opposite. What can you do? Yeah, just do whatever you're doing, do something else. Mm-hmm. And that by itself will help.
Yeah.
And then we'll get more into it here. All right. So the next piece of this is that let's talk about when the guests actually do come in. So far we've been talking about the anticipation of when someone knocks on the door or shows up. The next piece here is the guest comes in and then immediately, oh my goodness, look at this puppy.
Right, they just take over.
Oh yeah. And all of a sudden you've lost all control.
Yep.
Because even if your dog was doing good and was, keeping all four paws on the floor, suddenly Aunt Sally is almost on the floor with them, right? Ramping them up. And then we're like, this is, I don't know what to do. Right. And you don't want to be rude. And and so then you just go, okay, I'll just chalk it up to a loss.
Right. But
unfortunately, your dog doesn't know that you just gave up that one time. They just go, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yep. Yeah, they don't know.
Right. I'll do it. Normal. I'll do this next time.
Yeah. And I think that's where it comes down to, like, as hard as it can be, you can't allow the guests to control that interaction. So therefore, you have to step up before they even arrive, is really ideally what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just make sure something. Sorry.
Yep,
so most guests unknowingly, because most people aren't doing it on purpose. Right. They unknowingly reward these bad behaviors through either like reaching down for the dog, giving the dog eye contact, high-pitched voices, wildly moving quickly. Sometimes the dog's jumping up and they're pushing them down, right? We're doing all of the same things.
Yep. Right. And I think the eye contact is a big one that people don't really realize or notice, especially when it comes to dogs that demand bark. That's a big one I always think about with eye contact. If you have a demand barker and you're giving that dog eye contact, even though you're not interacting with them directly, it's still an interaction with them in their eyes.
Right. Yeah. And lost my place here. So
So the dog shouldn't be deciding when or how the interaction happens. Understanding that calm behavior is what earns the freedom and the access. So when we are dealing with front doors and guests coming in, if that dog doesn't have somewhere to be or somewhere to go and is just allowed to get to the door and be as close as they want at any given moment, if you have the guests come in, sit down, the dog's on the couch because they're allowed on the couch. Those are all of the times where a dog cannot be the one to decide how and when things go. If your dog comes in at a guest interaction at a level 10, then by a couple minutes of the guest getting in the door, that dog's going to be at a 12, and you have no hope of really winning over a 12 on the energy scale when it comes to dogs being excited. So you really need that basis of the interaction beginning where the dog is at like a 4, 5 at the most, where you have a little bit of like, okay, now we can ramp up the energy a little bit and give some pets, but we're not going to immediately get back up to a 12.
Right. If you don't have any overhead, there's nothing to catch them before they get to a 10, right? Because I explain to owners all the time that no dog listens at a 10 out of 10.
Right.
And these dogs that go into competition and they're screaming across the field and then they're biting and they're this and they're that and all of these things that they are trained to do, those dogs are not at a 10, right? That's the whole value or the whole point and the difficulty of training to those high levels is that you're trying to teach your dog to get to that like 9.8.
Yeah.
You want them right on the edge, but still able to be present and think and listen.
Yep.
But any dog, when they're fresh out of the factory, They were not given an instruction manual on what happens when they get to 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And no one ever taught them that they can be at a 9.
Yep.
It's your job to get your dog to an 8, to a 9, and then back down and teach them that they can turn that dial up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we first start building this social construct of someone coming over, we have to teach it without the actual interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And what we can do is we can teach the process like someone's coming over before they do.
Yep.
We're going to bolster and increase the statistical, I guess, the timing or the duration. Sorry, that's the better word that I'm looking for. I want to build the duration that I can keep my dog in some form of control, whether it's a downstay or a place or in a crate, whatever it is. Then I want to increase the distance that I can be away from them while they're in that duration.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to increase the distraction level that I can subject the dog to during those same durations and distance variables.
Right, and all without guests present still.
And exactly.
Yep.
So that's how we use the 3 Ds of dog training to proof the concept of place.
Yeah.
Or equivalent, whatever it is.
Right, because if you think that if you put your dog on place and you go fake answer the front door and the dog doesn't think that it's real the first several times, they definitely do. You getting excited, opening that door and being like, hey, how's it going? Like, dogs don't understand whether or not there's an actual human on the other side of that door to start off with.
Right. And so we encourage people to do that, at least at the beginning.
Yeah, those are definitely the easiest beginning stages.
But I say the beginning. Let me clarify that that's still like high school level.
Yeah.
Like tasks. You have to stay. We're assuming that you've worked through kindergarten through what, 8th grade? Ninth grade. I think
Middle
9th grade
school.
starts in 9th. So the concept is that you have to start at the beginning. You have to build. If you've taught your dog to go to stay on their place for a treat for about 10 seconds while you back up and walk forward and back up and walk forward, and then you want to go straight to opening the door and making sure that they stay there, you've gone too far too fast.
Yep.
You have to build that.
Yeah.
But when you do get there, you would have put in the time and the effort and the work into there. We did an entire episode on place. Go back and reference it. We have an entire course in the Paw Print Academy in the app on place. Go and watch it.
Yeah.
And it will answer all of your questions about distance, duration, and distraction. Mm-hmm. But then now we can apply it to someone coming in the door.
Yeah.
And then we can start to fake it, like going to the door and there's not someone there, going to the door and talking to someone. There are a lot of doorbells and things that you can get your Alexa to play. Yep. There are a lot of doorbells out there these days that you can set off from your phone.
Yeah.
So lots of options. But no matter what option you take, you have to simulate and build control in the interim. And when the guest comes over, what we're going to kind of jump back to here is that don't just talk to the guests while they're outside the door. Be like, "Hey, I'm going to invite you in, but I'm working really hard with my dog to not like crowd the door. Could you just ignore them just for a minute or two? And then I'll release them and you'll be able to, have lots of fun."
Yeah, because what you're trying to build here is going to be neutrality. If you don't build neutrality in your dog in regards to guests coming over and people showing up at your house, then you'll never have those positive interactions that you're kind of looking for in the dog. So what we look for is, as an example of situations, is putting the dog on place, the guest coming in. the dog settling down and getting to the point where they're bored that the guest is there. And they're like, well, I guess I'm not going to get over to that guest. And then you can release the dog to that guest.
Exactly. That's a much more effective greeting strategy than just releasing them right off the bat while they have all of that anticipation. They're very, very highly aroused and way overstimulated.
Yeah, you'll have a dog that's able to have clarity and think through the process of it without just being like, whoa, we're so excited. And also in regards to guests that don't have that sort of restraint, right? Because we all know at least one person with no restraint, and they're like, I'm gonna pet that dog. I don't care if it's jumping on me.
Right.
Have that dog greet that guest outside so that at least your house is not the environment in which the dog is connecting guests coming in, them getting excited. It's, hey, I see somebody outside, I can get excited, and then I come in and I have to calm down. That way it's out of the way for the guests. They've gotten their pets. It's gone all crazy. Worst case scenario. And then you come inside and you establish inside is where you're calm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So now let's talk through the actual structure that we're going to create this experience. We're going to kind of curate this experience. Mm-hmm. So we talked about the place command. It is absolutely the most, well, I guess maybe a crate would be the most, but
right.
because it forces
no options.
Right, there are no options.
Yeah.
But place command is one of the most powerful tools for managing guests calmly, because the whole concept of staying on place just in the home is impulse control.
Right. It really builds like a well-rounded dog, because you're working on training actively while that guest is there, or while you're working on pretending guests are coming over. Instead of you can use a crate, right? If you have a dog that's super scared of guests or, aggressive towards guests, then by all means use a crate and start there to where the guest comes in, ignores the dog in the crate, the dog calms down in the crate, and then they can come out. But if you have a dog that just needs to start working on impulse control and start graduating in their training from like being in a crate to now where do we go, because I want my dog out around guests, then place is going to be the primary tool that you're going to use in that process. And that dog is going to learn, like, I have to stay here. So it's literally the best one you could possibly get.
Yep. And so when we talk about this, I don't usually get a lot of pushback, but the pushback that I do get is in the question of, well, how long do I have to like make them stay on their place? And I think there's multiple parts of this conversation, because are we asking about just when, in this conversation, it's more about when guests are coming over.
Right. It's more about what the dog mindset is.
But the guests coming over isn't how we're training place.
Right.
So if we go a layer deeper, when we talk about how, well, we're going to put dogs on place for hours,
mm-hmm.
and people look at you like, well, isn't that kind of like inhumane? Like, what, the dog is, just has to like lay there. But think about it like this. Have you ever watched what a dog does most of the time
right.
in the house?
Yeah.
When you just let them do whatever they want, what do?
Yeah, they lay down.
They just lay down.
Somewhere.
Right. On the couch,
usually
on the floor,
in the way.
Whatever. We don't let our dogs on the couch. And there's lots of owners that don't let their dogs on the couch. We're not really arguing whether that's humane or not, whether they can be on the couch or not. I'm literally giving my dog a bed to lay in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking them that they lay here instead of there. But that small detail is very different for the dog, because the dog's not choosing where they want
right.
to lay and what they want to do. They're doing what you have asked them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the important piece. That's what's training this at that moment. And it will get to the point where the dog's just going to lay there because it's like, well, this is where I always lay. I like it here.
Yeah.
And then it won't be a problem at all. And then when you're just like, hey, go lay down, and you give the dog a choice, they'll still choose to go lay over there.
Yep.
So what we're doing is we're creating leadership, and we're putting the dog in a position where I want you to do it my way. Mm-hmm. There's no difference in the dog's mind of your way on Thursday evening versus your way when a guest comes over.
Yeah.
It's the same process. It's no, don't rush the door, go to your place. But because you've trained that before we even got there, now you have something to say, no, don't do this. Yes, do that.
Yep.
But you don't have that if you haven't created that before the guest ever comes over.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we have to build that foundation.
Yeah. And then using crates and any sort of tether. So we've talked about tether before. I'm going to go over it really quick before we move on in case you don't know or haven't heard the previous podcast. But tethering involves putting the leash on the dog and anchoring the leash on with the handle to something that the dog cannot move. So it gives them room to kind of walk around and move, but not a whole lot of space or options. So crates and tethers are going to be management tools, but they're not going to be punishments, right? We're not yelling at the dog or grabbing the dog's collar to put them in the crates or tethering them there and leaving them for hours at a time. We're only going to use it as a management tool when necessary to show the dog that there's nothing to do right now other than calm down. You can really use it in the early stages of training before you move on to place and building that impulse control in. They do create a lot of clarity when the dog can't make good choices early on. So puppies, dogs in the teenage phase, dogs that are not mature enough yet to make those good choices, and you can't be right there to ensure that they do make those choices or that you correct their wrong choices. So those are really good management strategies early on in training.
Yeah. And the dogs can earn more freedom, right? We don't have to just control everything that they do all the time. I have 2 dogs that I have no problem leaving out to do whatever. They could lay wherever they want. I don't have any issues with that. Mm-hmm. But I also have 2 other dogs who I don't trust and that they're going to make those great decisions. And I think that if left to their own devices for a long enough time period, they're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
So it's kind of insanity to be like, well, their maturity doesn't meet my expectations, but I'm going to wing it.
Yeah.
I'm not just, it'll probably be okay. Hopefully it will be okay.
Right. That's like leaving your toddler at home alone and expecting
right. You're
them
like,
not to
maybe
burn
it
down
will
the
be
house.
okay.
Yeah.
That you would never do that.
Right. Maybe your house will be on fire.
Maybe it will. But when you know that you don't have complete faith and confidence in your dog, it's wild how many people still just go, well,
right. Because also still your house might
okay.
be on fire.
Hopefully it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think that we can do better. And I think that you can just lead from the front a little bit better. Step up, be the leader, and
make the best choice for your dog that you know, not what you think would make the dog happy. Make the choice that you know is the best choice and the most responsible for your dog.
Absolutely. And with that, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be the same choice, right? Because as your dog does get more and more trained and more mature and grows up and older and becomes better at those impulse control or those impulsivity moments, you can give them more freedom. There's nothing wrong with that. But their maturity has to meet your expectations first. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can't you're basically allowing the dog to knowingly go until failure.
Yeah.
And then you really don't have a right to be upset at that point because you knew it was coming. You are the human in this thing. You can plan 2 and 3 levels deep.
Yeah.
Dogs focus 1 level deep. They're like, the door's open, I'm going outside.
Right.
The food's on the floor, I want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. All right, I'm going to move forward so I don't kick that horse anymore.
Yeah. Don't do it.
We want to use place as one of our best options when guests arrive. And we really should be working on training not only before the situation comes up, but also you're going to have to start training through the situation as it's happening.
Yeah.
And this is where you've got to set aside your pride of, I just want a great trained dog. And oh man, like, how do you think you get that? You get it by teaching your dog, and you have to teach it in those circumstances. So you may have to have a person or two over at the point where their dog is finally ready for that. You may have to have a person over, and it might go poorly. And you correct your dog and you put it back on place, and then you continue working through it.
Right. And you have to be in a position yourself to work through it with your dog. You have to go into it with an intention of working with your dog, because if you're setting up like a business meeting or like Bible study and you're like the host and you have to do all these things, then you're not going to be there for your dog.
It might just be a better situation to just put them in a crate.
Right. That's like,
or
hey,
put them in
cool,
another
we're
room.
going to call it a management strategy tonight. We're going to just use the crate. But you still need to set those intentional moments and time frames where you can work through it with your dog, because if you don't work through it, your dog will never learn.
Yep. And then you have to not get embarrassed. You have to not get embarrassed. Sure. You have to not make it personal.
Yeah.
Because when you correct your dog, this is where people get real sensitive. It's like, well, what does correcting mean? What are you doing to correct them? A lot of times all I'm doing is walking towards the dog. And the dog's like, oh, I messed up. I got to get back on my place. A lot of times all it takes is a step or a no. If your no holds value, if you've done the other steps in the process correctly, your no holds some value. You can say no, take a step towards your dog. The dog backs up and goes right back to their place because they know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are the things that we have to be prepared to work through, even though your friend is over. Because your dog isn't going to get any other lesson out of this other than, well, once my parents were distracted, then I could do whatever I want.
Yeah. And we're not telling you that your dog shouldn't enjoy people and shouldn't like people and shouldn't, interact with your guests. But at first, it should be few and far between. And the goal of it is to make people neutral to the dog, not negative or overly positive. You don't want people to be overly positive for your dog, because that means as soon as they see anybody, they're going to be barking, they're going to be going after that person, they're going to be jumping. That means that they have interacted too well with people.
Yeah.
And too much. But on the opposite of that, if your dog is barking and backing up and running away from people, they've also been overly exposed to some degree in a negative light for that dog. And so creating neutrality towards people that they don't know is your ultimate goal, because you can then sway whether their interactions with those people after it's neutral go positively or negatively.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing, while you're working through this, it is not unfashionable or inhumane for a dog to drag a leash.
Yeah.
Have them wear and drag their leash around. Because there's no better way for you to interact, or for a guest even to interact with a dog who's crowding or jumping or not listening, than to use a leash to manage that situation rather than using your hands on the dog.
Yeah, when dogs come into our programs, they drag leashes for the first several weeks. And it's like, right, because you have to have that accountability behind the dog before they understand and know that no matter what, you have the accountability there.
Right. And it creates the exact same feeling and the same communication style across all of the things that you do with your dog, rather than overstimulating them by like hand to fur contact.
Yeah.
All right. Any other tips and tricks? We talked about the threshold. We talked about the little force field around the door.
Yep.
We talked about drag lines,
Yep.
tethers, place.
Yeah, I think that's about it. We touched on all the really good stuff.
All right, let's open it up for questions. So, for anybody listening live, I'm gonna unmute you, and if there are any questions, now is your time. Ready, set, go. No questions, no questions, no questions. All right. So with that, we will turn that off. Let's go into listener projects. So listener project number 1, controlled guest entry drill. So what I want you to do is practice like a mock guest arrival. You need to recruit a family member, a friend, one of your neighbors, somebody who is open to working through this with you. Place your dog on a place bed. This is also, remember, this is not kindergarten. We want to have your dog in high school on this skill set before we start this.
Yeah.
You've got to work through the place bed and working through duration, distraction, and distance before we get to this point. But once you're there, this is how we do controlled guest entries. Place your dog on their place bed before the door opens, and then reward calm behavior and that continuation of them staying on their place with good, or use one of your continuation markers that has a treat attached to it. Mm-hmm. Either way, work through some continuation markers and some moments in time, some praise there, and then release the dog only when they've mentally settled. If your dog breaks the position in the middle, just calmly reset. Don't let your emotions take over. Don't get frustrated. Just calmly reset the situation and then repeat. All right. Number 2, neutral greeting. Have your guests ignore the dog completely for the first several minutes. Once they enter the home, just have them go sit on the couch, pull up a chair, or just stand around. Give the dog a few minutes to find their own impulse control. Mm-hmm. No eye contact, no touching, no excited talking. Allow your dog time to just kind of observe from a distance before eventually releasing them and allowing that interaction. Mm-hmm. Focus on rewarding your dog for showing neutrality instead of constant over-arousal and excitement. Yeah. All right.
I think the only thing that I'm going to add to that for people that will always say, well, I don't have guests over, I can't have guests over, this, that, and the other, I don't have time for it, anything like that. If you have somebody that lives with you, your partner, your roommate, whoever, and we do this sometimes too, like when you are coming to the house, it's like, hey, cool, when you get here, ring the doorbell and I'll come answer the door. Whoever lives with you can contribute to that just by simply like doing it when they come home. And it's a quick drill that you can
get like 2 or 3 of those repetitions every day, just going to work and coming home.
Right. And if you think that your dog's not going to be super amped to see like dad at the front door, like come in and ignore them, that's the ultimate practice.
Yeah.
So use those moments where it's like, hey, just send me a text when you get here or something, or just ring the doorbell when you get here and I want to work through it with them. Cool. They're coming home anyways. Just ring the doorbell on your way in. So
Absolutely.
Great moments to practice.
Good addition. All right. So that is going to round out our episode for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We are actively working on an iOS app and an Android app for our current web app. Mm-hmm. It's a work in progress, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there as fast as we can. Working on some more content to put out for some additional courses. If you would like to be on this podcast, or you want to be a guest on there, you can do so through our web app. Go to thepawprintacademy.com, create a little account, go into the events, and you can pull the link for the next podcast recording. Jump on here, ask us questions live. Love to have you. And if you're just interested in working with your dog, jump on the app and fire up one of the courses and get some progress. Build that relationship.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in for us. Have a great night.
Good night.